Brandon Fugal just held a press conference revealing what ground-penetrating radar found 200 feet beneath Skinwalker Ranch, a massive metallic structure measuring 300 feet long with perfect geometric angles. It's been there for thousands of years. It's actively generating electromagnetic pulses suggesting operational technology. The material composition doesn't match anything natural. Government officials immediately demanded the data be classified. Subscribe now, because Brandon is defying federal orders and proceeding with excavation. What's buried under that mesa could rewrite human history and prove we're not alone. Brandon Fugal's decision to publicly disclose the underground discovery at Skinwalker Ranch came during a private scientific conference held in Salt Lake City that was attended by approximately 200 researchers, academics, and industry professionals from fields including physics, archaeology, aerospace engineering, and geophysics. The conference, titled Anomalous Phenomena and Advanced Technology Studies, had been planned months in advance as a forum for presenting research that mainstream academic institutions often reject due to controversial subject matter. Brandon had been scheduled to give a general update on Skinwalker Ranch investigations, and attendees expected a routine presentation about UAP sightings and electromagnetic anomalies. What they got instead was a bombshell announcement that sent shockwaves through the scientific community and triggered immediate government intervention. Brandon opened his presentation by acknowledging that what he was about to reveal violated non-disclosure agreements he'd signed with federal agencies and could result in serious legal consequences for himself and his team. "I've struggled with this decision for months," he told the audience, "but I believe the public has a right to know what we've found, and I believe the scientific community deserves the opportunity to study this discovery openly rather than having it buried in classified programs where knowledge goes to die." He then displayed ground-penetrating radar images, gravimetric scan data, and electromagnetic analysis results, showing an unmistakable artificial structure buried deep beneath the mesa at Skinwalker Ranch. The conference room, according to attendees who were present, fell into stunned silence as the implications became clear. This wasn't another ambiguous UAP sighting or questionable evidence of paranormal activity. This was hard scientific data from multiple independent scanning technologies, all confirming the same conclusion. Something massive, metallic, and geometrically precise was buried underground at a location that had been the subject of decades of mysterious phenomena. Brandon explained that the team had been analyzing this data for 8 months, consulting with experts, running verification tests, and trying to understand what they'd discovered before going public. The decision to reveal the findings now came after government officials increased pressure to classify all Skinwalker Ranch data and attempted to prevent any further investigation of the underground anomaly. They want to control this discovery, to hide it from the world while they decide what to do with it. "I can't allow that to happen," Brandon stated. The technical data Brandon Fugal presented at the conference provided unprecedented detail about the buried structure's characteristics, dimensions, and properties that distinguish it from any known natural geological formation or human construction. Ground-penetrating radar surveys conducted over a 6-month period using multiple frequencies and scanning angles revealed an object buried approximately 200 to 250 feet beneath the mesa's surface, positioned at a depth that places it well below any known archaeological layers or historical human activity in the region. The structure measures approximately 300 feet in length, 150 feet in width, and an estimated 40 feet in height, based on the radar returns and density analysis. What makes the object unmistakably artificial rather than natural is its geometric precision. The radar images show straight edges forming right angles, parallel surfaces maintaining consistent distances, and symmetrical proportions that natural rock formations simply don't exhibit. Geological features form through processes like erosion, sedimentation, volcanic activity, and tectonic forces that create irregular organic shapes. The underground anomaly at Skinwalker Ranch displays the hallmarks of deliberate construction following a geometric design. Material composition analysis using advanced gravimetric sensors that measure subtle variations in gravitational fields caused by different material densities revealed that the structure is significantly denser than the surrounding sandstone and limestone geology. The density readings suggest the object contains metallic elements in concentrations far exceeding anything that would occur naturally in that geological context. Spectrographic analysis of electromagnetic signatures bouncing off the structure indicate the presence of metals and possibly metal alloys that don't match the iron oxide traces and mineral content of the surrounding rock layers. Most puzzling is the structure's orientation and positioning. It's not aligned with any natural geological strata or fault lines, but but appears to have been deliberately placed in a specific location and depth. The top surface of the structure shows what might be deliberate placement beneath a specific thickness of overburden, as if whoever or whatever constructed it wanted it hidden but at a recoverable depth, rather than buried so deep it could never be accessed. Dr. Travis Taylor's analysis noted that the depth of approximately 200 feet is significant because it's deep enough to remain hidden from casual surface observation or basic archaeological surveys, but shallow enough that advanced civilization with drilling technology could theoretically access it. The discovery of the underground structure at Skinwalker Ranch wasn't a single eureka moment, but rather the culmination of months of systematic investigation using progressively more sophisticated scanning technologies that built upon initial anomalous readings that the team couldn't explain through conventional means. The investigation began when Dr. Travis Taylor was analyzing electromagnetic field data collected during routine monitoring of the ranch property and noticed consistent anomalies emanating from beneath the mesa rather than from the airspace above, where most of the ranch's phenomena typically manifest. The electromagnetic readings showed regular pulse patterns originating from underground that were too consistent and structured to be natural geological processes like piezoelectric effects from shifting rock under pressure. Travis proposed conducting ground-penetrating radar surveys to determine if there was a physical source for these electromagnetic emissions beneath the surface. Brandon Fugal approved the expenditure for commercial GPR equipment, and the initial scans in the mesa area immediately revealed density anomalies that suggested something unusual was buried at depth. However, these initial scans using standard archaeological GPR equipment could only penetrate about 30 feet deep, showing tantalizing hints of something larger below but not providing clear imaging of whatever was generating the deeper anomalies. Brandon made the decision to bring in industrial-grade ground-penetrating radar typically used for mining surveys and geological assessments, equipment capable of imaging to depths exceeding 300 feet. These more powerful scans, conducted over a 2-week period covering the entire mesa area in a grid pattern, revealed the full scope of the buried structure for the first time. The data was so unexpected that Travis initially suspected equipment malfunction or misinterpretation of geological features. To verify the findings, Brandon contracted 3 separate geophysical survey companies to conduct independent scans of the same area using different technologies: gravimetric sensors, seismic reflection surveys, and electromagnetic induction mapping. All 3 independent surveys confirmed the presence of a large, dense, geometrically regular structure buried at the same depth and location. The convergence of evidence from multiple technologies operated by different teams eliminated the possibility of equipment error or data misinterpretation. The final confirmation came when Travis designed a specific experiment to interact with the underground structure by transmitting electromagnetic pulses at specific frequencies into the ground and monitoring for responses. The structure responded with its own electromagnetic emissions, proving it wasn't just an inert buried object, but something capable of detecting and reacting to external stimuli. The most unsettling aspect of the underground structure at Skinwalker Ranch isn't simply that it exists or that it appears artificially constructed. It's that the object is actively generating electromagnetic fields and energy emissions that suggest it remains operational despite being buried for what could be thousands of years. This discovery transformed the investigation from an archaeological curiosity into a potential first contact scenario with technology far beyond current human capabilities. Dr. Travis Taylor's electromagnetic monitoring equipment detected pulses emanating from the structure at regular intervals, averaging every 47 seconds. The pulses aren't random fluctuations or background noise, but structured emissions with consistent frequency patterns, amplitude variations, and directional characteristics that indicate deliberate signal generation rather than passive electromagnetic leakage from degrading materials. The energy signature operates primarily in frequencies between 1.6 and 2.2 gigahertz, a range that overlaps with modern satellite communications and radar systems, but with modulation patterns unlike any human technology. Most significantly, Travis discovered that the underground emissions correlate precisely with the anomalous phenomena observed above ground at Skinwalker Ranch. When the structure pulses with higher intensity electromagnetic bursts, the team simultaneously records increased UAP activity in the airspace above the mesa, radiation spikes in specific areas of the property, and equipment malfunctions affecting GPS, radio communications, and electronic devices. The correlation is too consistent to be coincidental, suggesting the buried structure is either causing the aerial phenomena, communicating with whatever creates those phenomena, or serving as a beacon that attracts unknown entities or craft to the location. Analysis of the energy patterns reveals sophisticated characteristics that challenge explanation. The pulses vary in intensity and frequency, following mathematical patterns that Travis identified as potentially encoding information, similar to how digital data is transmitted through modulated carrier waves. Some pulse sequences repeat on 12-hour cycles aligned with the Earth's rotation, while others correspond to lunar phases or solar activity cycles, suggesting the structure is monitoring or responding to astronomical phenomena. The amount of energy being generated is another mystery. Based on the strength of electromagnetic fields detected at the surface, the structure must be producing power outputs in the kilowatt range continuously. This requires either an internal power source that has operated for potentially millennia without depleting, or the structure is somehow harvesting energy from its environment through unknown means. Determining the age of the buried structure at Skinwalker Ranch has proven extraordinarily challenging because conventional archaeological dating methods like radiocarbon dating or thermoluminescence require physical samples that the team doesn't have access to without excavation. However, geological analysis of the sediment layers above the structure provides compelling evidence that it has been underground far longer than any known human civilization existed in North America. Geological core samples taken from multiple locations across the mesa show undisturbed sedimentary layers extending from the current surface down to the depth where the structure is located. These layers represent hundreds or potentially thousands of years of continuous deposition from wind erosion, water flow, and organic decomposition, creating soil overburden. The critical observation is that none of these layers show evidence of disturbance that would indicate someone dug a massive hole, placed the structure, and then backfilled the excavation. If humans had buried the structure at any point in recent history, the geological record would show clear disruption in the sediment layers where digging occurred. The absence of such disturbance suggests the structure was in place before the overlying sediment accumulated naturally over time. Geological dating of the sediment layers using optically stimulated luminescence and other techniques indicates the overburden directly above the structure has been accumulating for approximately 2,000 to 3,500 years, meaning the structure must have been in place before that period. This timeline predates any known advanced civilization in North America capable of creating such sophisticated buried construction. The implications are staggering and challenge fundamental assumptions about human technological development. Three competing theories have emerged among researchers analyzing the data. The ancient lost civilization theory proposes that an advanced culture existed in North America thousands of years before known Native American societies, possessed technology far beyond what archaeology currently recognizes, constructed the underground facility for unknown purposes, and then disappeared, leaving almost no surface evidence of their existence. The extraterrestrial origin theory suggests the structure is not human-made at all, but rather constructed by non-human intelligence, possibly as a monitoring station, communications array, or technology cache placed on Earth in the distant past. The time displacement theory, which even Travis admits sounds like science fiction, proposes the structure could be from humanity's own future, somehow displaced backward in time through mechanisms we don't yet understand. Within hours of Brandon Fugal's public announcement at the scientific conference, federal government agencies launched a coordinated response designed to suppress the information, control access to the underground structure, and potentially prosecute Brandon and his team for violating national security restrictions. The speed and intensity of the government's reaction suggested they were already monitoring the situation and had contingency plans ready to execute if Brandon went public with his findings. Department of Defense officials contacted Brandon directly by phone before he'd even left the conference venue, demanding he immediately turn over all scan data, analysis results, and any physical samples collected from the property. The officials cited national security concerns and invoked provisions of federal law that allow classification of discoveries on private property if they relate to technologies or information deemed relevant to defense interests. Brandon's attorneys were simultaneously served with legal notices, warning that any further public disclosure of information about the underground structure could result in prosecution under espionage statutes. Pentagon lawyers argued that that the electromagnetic signatures and potential technology represented classified defense-related information regardless of whether it originated from human or non-human sources. The legal theory was that anything found on U.S. territory with potential military applications automatically falls under government jurisdiction for national security review. Most aggressive was the attempt to seize the property itself. Federal officials contacted Brandon with an offer to purchase Skinwalker Ranch at above market value, framed as a generous opportunity to avoid legal complications. When Brandon refused to sell, the tone shifted to threats of eminent domain proceedings where the government could forcibly acquire the property, claiming national security necessity. Brandon's legal team pushed back, arguing that eminent domain for purposes of covering up scientific discoveries would face significant constitutional challenges. The government response revealed something crucial. They weren't surprised by Brandon's announcement because they already knew about the underground structure. Declassified documents that Brandon's researchers uncovered showed that Department of Defense conducted their own surveys of the Skinwalker Ranch area during the 1990s when Robert Bigelow owned the property and had been investigating the phenomena there. The government had known for decades that something was buried beneath the mesa, but had deliberately prevented excavation and kept the information classified while publicly dismissing Skinwalker Ranch phenomena as folklore and pseudoscience. Brandon Fugal announced excavation will proceed despite government threats and team concerns. Specialized drilling equipment designed for deep archaeological excavation is being transported to the ranch. An international team of scientists, engineers, and archaeologists has been assembled under NDAs. Armed security will prevent federal interference. Drilling begins in 60 days, targeting the structure's edge rather than center to minimize risk. They'll proceed in stages, first breach, then remote sensing of interior, finally human access if safe. What they find when reaching the structure 200 feet down could prove ancient alien technology or rewrite human history entirely.